is Wednesday, December 5th. That's day 5 of Vlogmas. And December 5th has a special meaning for me because 7 years ago today I lost my son Joe to colon cancer. So I'm sitting here waiting for my water to boil for my tea, as I usually do. And that is one of the things that becomes immediately apparent when you lose someone. Everything continues to go on around you, and sometimes you wonder how that could be. But life does go on. It's a sad day for me, but I have good memories of Joe, and at the end of this video I'm going to tell you a little bit about Joe. So for right now, I'm going to be pouring my tea in a few minutes. Starting the day, going out for breakfast, and maybe go visit some pretty spot today, maybe the ocean. So that's what we're going to be up to right now, later. Okay, so we are in the car now, and we're heading over to Long Beach Island to go to Wally's for breakfast. Hopefully they'll be open. And then I'm not sure what we're going to be doing. Trying to keep this camera steady. So it is snowing.
Good morning, snow.
Yeah, the first time this year we've had
all
snow.
Bundled up vests and hats. And did that?
Okay.
Why do you keep saying okay?
that one in there. Okay, so I promised that I would share a little bit of Joe with you today. And this is a little piece I wrote about him, and it's called Quiet Treasures, My Son Joseph. And it was written the day he passed away, December 5th, 2011. Who was this mysterious man who was known to us as Joseph, Joe, Joey, Bro, Uncle Joe, or Hun? From the time he was a little boy, I figured out how to read Joe. I learned what each subtle body movement meant. His facial expressions were actually quite loud. Sometimes his eyes alone would tell a whole story. His teachers would say to me, "Joseph is a good student, but he is so quiet." As he got older and moved on to adulthood, I lost touch with little things about Joe, what music he liked, what clothes he chose to wear, what songs he liked to play on his guitar, where he was on the weekend, or who he spent his evenings with. I never lost touch, though, with the silent communication we shared. His eyes, his smile, or a little shrug of his shoulders each meant something particularly special to me. Because he was so quiet, very often Joe would get teased. "Keep it down, Joe, you're talking so much so that none of us can get a word in edgewise." Joe would turn red, but he would always smile. It seemed as though some people would be uncomfortable around him. "He doesn't talk much," they would say. Many of the people in his life knew only small bits and tiny pieces of him. "He is so quiet," they would say. "What is he thinking? How does he feel? He is so quiet." Oh yes, we all knew that Joe was a Mets fan. I know that when everyone in the stands was yelling, "Let's go Mets, let's go Mets," Joe was quietly yelling it too. His laugh may have been quiet, but his sense of humor was obvious. I'm sure if you listened closely, you would know that inside he was laughing loudly at a silly Conan O'Brien skit. I wonder which character from the show Family Guy Joe most identified with. Perhaps Brian Griffin, the dog, said all of the things that Joe was quietly thinking. What was there about Uncle Joe that Bella, Kenny, Ryan, and Tyler could hear that perhaps others couldn't? I'm sure they never said, "But he is so quiet." I suppose there may have been some little specific things that I didn't know about Joe. But when I reflect on my son, I understand that I knew the most important things about him. I knew what a gentle person he was. I understood his off-kilter sense of humor. I knew that he loved little children and puppies and that they loved him back. I knew that he would always go back for seconds when I served my famous lasagna. I knew that Domani was the light of his life. I knew that he was a good father. I knew that it was meant to be for he and Anne to find each other again. I knew that he loved his wife. I knew that he was strong and that his strength ran deep. During the last weeks of his life, I knew that there were times when he must have been very frightened, but he never gave up the fight. I knew that he would never willingly leave his family. Just a few days ago, he smiled and said to me, "We still have time." He knew I loved him. The last time he spoke to me, he mouthed the words, "I love you." Quiet people are sometimes misunderstood. Take the time to get to know a quiet person. After all, you might be lucky enough to discover the treasures of their mind, heart, and soul, just like my strong, lovable, wonderful, quiet Joe. So this is the end of the day, day 5 of Vlogmas. It was challenging today for me, but I got through it, and especially want to thank everyone who sent their thoughts and prayers and comments for me on this day, and it really is so comforting, and I really appreciate everyone who is thinking about my family and us and me, and I feel very loved, so thank you so much.